Okay. All right. Hello, I am DeWitt Wesson, the Community Relations Associate at Aljoya Thornton Place. Um, Before we start today's presentation, I'd like to share a little bit about our beautiful community. Aljoya Thornton Place is a premier retirement community located in North Seattle, featuring spacious, elegant apartments, exquisite cuisine currently being delivered to our residents, apartments daily, and robust, meaningful, life-enriching activities to keep our residents engaged, entertained, and connected. Additionally, our tranquil outdoor courtyard and the Thornton Creek Walkway are perfect for visiting with friends and family during this time of social distancing. If you are interested in learning more, our community relations team would be happy to answer questions or take you on a tour of our community on request. We can be reached at 206-306-7920. And now for our main event, we are honored to host Dick Carruthers, who will be presenting Selling Your Home. Mr. Carruthers of Windermere has been a realtor for over 30 years and has successfully negotiated and closed hundreds of transactions in all kinds of market conditions. Dick has earned a senior real estate specialist designation and is on the advisory board of Windermere Senior Transition Group. He's passionate about working with seniors and the special people in their lives. All right, take it away, Dick.
All right. Thank you all for checking in today. Um, as DeWitt mentioned, I'm a member of a nationwide group of people that have earned a designation called Seniors Real Estate Specialist. And what that entails is a number of years of studying and working with a number of people in the senior demographic, which is what my specialty is. What this group has learned over the years is that there's a lot more to the whole selling process and the move than just putting a sign up in your front yard and inviting people to come in. So I want to share with you a little bit of information about what the real estate market is doing here in Seattle at the moment. Because I think it's important when you're considering making a move that you determine whether the marketplace that you want to go into is healthy and predictable. So the first thing, the basic factors of what makes housing somewhat affordable for people is the cost to borrow mortgage money. And there is plenty of mortgage money available in our marketplace today. Interest rates are about 2.73% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And that is historically just about as rock bottom as they get. So again, if one's qualified and has a good credit score, it's pretty easy to get mortgages, even with just 3 to 5% down. So what has the price of homes been doing? Well, in the last year, the median sales price in the Seattle marketplace was $785,000, and that was up 6.1% year over year. In condominiums, the average median sales price was $475,000, which was up 3.3%. Now, depending on what your specific neighborhood is and whatnot, these numbers can vary. Some neighborhoods have outperformed others in both condominiums and single-family homes. As far as the job growth goes, unemployment has gone up, but interesting enough, when we look at the buyer pool out there, what we're seeing is that the majority are people that they have good jobs, they don't have any really risks of being laid off, and they're getting paid pretty handsome salaries. Lastly, in any marketplace, one of the key elements is supply versus demand. And what we have seen in the last year, and actually it's been going on for a few years, is that the supply of homes in the different neighborhoods is substantially down. In other words, there's same level of good buyers out there, but lack of inventory, which can lead to some multiple offer situations. It's really an excellent time if the timing works for people to consider making a move if it's inevitable. Because again, one thing we can't control is the supply and interest rates. So I've met with many people and over the last year or two, and as I mentioned, this nationwide group, they occasionally do different polls with different consumers in various marketplaces, including Seattle. The average age group is 72 to 84 years of age is who they tend to poll. Even though at 65, one's considered a senior, it's different. It's a different demographic as we go forward. So the question was, marketplace looks good. Making a move is probably more in short order than 5 or 10 years from now. But it all looks good, but what's holding you back from actually putting your foot in the water and moving forward? Well, the number one thing that people brought up was fear of change. The simple fact that for many of us, we've been in our properties for 30, 40, 50 years. We've got our routines pretty much down. And so fear of change was the number one reason. The next one was the actual fear of downsizing, packing, and sorting items. In my experience in working with many, many people, especially if you've been in your property a long time, the packing, the sorting, the downsizing creates a lot of angst. And I share this with you because if you know going in to selling your property, these things to expect, it doesn't change the picture totally, but it definitely will make you more comfortable. And there are ways to make it even more comfortable by using additional help. The next one was, am I going to miss my home? Am I making the right decision? Oftentimes making the right decision is the fact that you haven't gotten enough information, either on what's available out there for me to move to, various factors, but the answers are out there. It's just a matter of kind of breaking it down, knowing what to ask. We all, at some point when we move, will miss the house. But again, you bring the memories forward with you, and your home becomes a house or a condominium, and then your next chapter becomes your new home. Lastly was financial concerns. And here in the Seattle area, if you have looked at or taken a tour of a number of the communities, you'll notice that they're not inexpensive to move to. But when asked, the financial concerns was really at the bottom of the list for, again, I think I mentioned it was like 700 people polled, which I found kind of interesting. Likewise, another questionnaire went out, and what were the top reasons that people had to make a move? Well, the number one was maintaining a house. And even though many of us have the financial wherewithals to, pay for the roof, pay for what all these things, if you're in a condominium, pay for a special assessment or whatnot. But what happens is, as we've been longer in our homes and as we get older, just the sheer fact of looking outside your window and noticing that, well, gosh, the yard isn't quite like it used to be. This needs a project. It can weigh on people. And again, that's something that if you're going through this, you're not alone. The next one was health issues. And what I can say about the health issues is that if you are considering a move, it is a much more pleasant experience to move under your own control. And that's because that's a big factor once you start the moving process, is the feeling of losing control. I've also, again, I've had experience where a health issue occurs, whether it's someone breaks a hip, falls off the ladder trying to clean the gutter. And that is probably the worst time to then decide to make a move. One is the majority of communities or places that you might have looked at or will be looking at, they have waiting lists. So it's not like all of a sudden you place a phone call and say, oh, I need in next week, or after I return from the rehab, I need in. So most people, again, are happier if they get more proactive while you're in good shape. Downsizing, the home is too large. I found this one to be interesting because, again, I visited a lot of people that either whether they're single or a couple or whatnot, and you're in a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath home, and you don't use very much of it at all. But again, like I mentioned, we get used to our houses, so the too large didn't come up as a major factor. The last one was loneliness. And hopefully during this COVID environment, you haven't just been at home by yourself for months on end, but it's been found that people need contact, and their health suffers when they're not around other people. And that's where at some point making a move to a community of your choice really pays dividends. Your health improves, your diet improves. There's a lot of improvement that occurs. So those last couple slides are a few things that you can again look at, apply it to yourselves, and realize that you're not all by yourself out there with different thoughts about these things. That it's really pretty much the norm that people go through. All right, what we're going to start getting into is a bit of the selling, the actual selling process. And I'm going to go over, I think, some key things that you need to know and what to expect. And I think the first one is most people, when they decide, okay, now's the time to sell, they may have someone in the business, a friend. They may interview a few agents, may attend a seminar like we're doing now, and listen to what I'm presenting. If there's a comfort level, we talk further. But the first thing to know is that it used to be, when you sold a property, that the real estate agents out there all represented the seller. And the logic was, well, the seller pays the brokerage fee / commission. In today's marketplace, we actually have 3 different definitions of how agents work out there. The first one is the seller's agent. So when you hire a seller, or an agent to represent you, that agent is the only person that represents you. The second one is the buyer's agent. The buyers will pick their own agent. And even if the agent's in the same office as the person you've chosen, they strictly represent the buyer. Thirdly, in the state of Washington, as agents, we're allowed to act in what's called dual agency. And what that means is we are technically able to represent both buyer and seller in a transaction. Personally, I don't believe that the dual agency can work, because I've not ever seen it where you can, as an individual, 100% represent both parties in a transaction, because your hands really should be tied to the loyalty of perhaps who you met first and who hired you. But this is what exists today. And I bring it up at the beginning because one of the first things you may do is interview an agent. And if this is important to you, it's probably important to ask them up front what their opinion is of dual agency. Because if you're not comfortable with it, then it's a little late once you've signed up with the agent. You're going down the road and they happen to bring in a buyer and, you know, can tend to push a little harder to get you to sign the offer, because of course the agent has a vested interest in both sides of the transaction. Are there any questions on this one? All right. In real estate, I think the most important factor to consider is communication. And what I've noticed over the years is that there's a few things that the consumer, when asked or brought up in a casual social environment or whatnot, some concerns that come up. And so I've tried to address those with actual written guarantees. And the most important thing is what's called the communication and activity report. From the minute that you enter a relationship with a real estate agent, I think it's important for you to immediately figure out what's the best way to communicate and how often do you wish to communicate. The activity report, you should be on a weekly basis, or even more if that's what what helps you. You need to know what activity is going on with the house, because too many times people will be commenting, or a friend may say, "Well, how's the sale of your home going?" And I've heard it many times, and it's like, well, my agent, I haven't heard from him in a week or two. You're going to be asked at some point to entertain an offer on your home. And that's not the time to all of a sudden try to recap everything that's been going on. You should be able to be pretty much on top of everything as much as your broker is. I've also found that when you list your home for sale with a real estate agent, the listing agreement is for a period of time. The timing generally is 90 days to 6 months. It just really is case by case, depending on what kind of property you have, price range, location, those type of things. But what occasionally can happen, and I don't see it often, but sometimes what can happen is a family member becomes ill, perhaps the client becomes ill, or something comes up, or the community or where they're moving to, something goes awry there and they're not able to move. Well, if that comes up, my philosophy is we have a discussion, and if it's not the right time, then we cancel the listing agreement and you're free to move on. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that if we're working with a buyer and you're under contract, that you can all of a sudden just cancel the listing, but it does release you to move on. That's not really the normal practice in our marketplace. Many times when you list a property, the broker on the other side will perhaps take your home off the market, but you're still technically under contract. And again, we all work differently in this regard. It's not a company-wide philosophy. It gets down to the individual agent that you decide to hire. I happen to know also that there's going to be some costs that you incur in getting your property ready for the market. That's be it windows cleaned, carpets cleaned, house cleaning, various items. So what I offer people is one, thank you for attending this webinar, but also knowing that getting ready to market will have some cost. I offer $1,000 discount at closing off of the commission that I receive once your transaction has closed. Any questions? Okay. Again, communication, being in the loop, very important. So what I've designed to help identify your wants and needs is a questionnaire, and you're looking there at just a couple of questions that are on the questionnaire. One is, do you have a financial advisor who can draw out a plan to make sure you can afford the community of your choice? I also, at the very end of the questionnaire, have a question that, assume it's 6 months from now, describe the perfect situation for you. It's pretty rare that you're not on this same page with whoever's helping you make decisions. But occasionally, I've gone out, paid a visit to a potential client, and they've filled out the questionnaire or part of it, and we'll be sitting there at the table, and one of the parties will say, yeah, I'm looking forward to not cooking as much, getting out and doing a few other things, not being as tied to the house, etc. And the party right next to him is describing, well, yeah, I'm looking forward to in the spring to get out and do some yard work, go to my shop perhaps, and start working on a project. So it's at that point when I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my goodness, you guys aren't on the same page. And one of the parties will say, well, you're right, I don't plan on moving. Well, that's not something you want to go through, is to get down to making a decision and find out your significant other that you are working with. And that can be adult children, confidence, husband, wife, partner. So it really encompasses whoever you're relying on for some advice in that arena. So what I recommend is you take this questionnaire, and if you have someone else who has some sway into what you helping you make decisions, each of you fill out the questionnaire separately and then compare notes. And what it is, it's a great way to organize your thoughts. It also helps me determine what, if any, real estate experiences you've had. It also lets us know that financially it's something that can work, because you don't want to go through the whole process just to find out that you can't afford to do what you want to do. And again, on some of these things like this questionnaire, you provide DeWitt with your information. I'm happy to send you a copy, email you a copy. Happy to do so. All right, let's talk about getting your house ready for sale. And this also applies to condominiums as well, except in the condominium market, you have common areas which you don't really have control over. So that's up to the association. But basically, how we live in a home and how we sell a home for top dollar can be two different things. Our buyers out there, they make their buying decisions predominantly based on emotion. And then they justify that decision with logical and rational criteria. So what we want to do is try to achieve something that helps the buyer to mentally move into your home. This is from the moment they drive up the driveway and walk into the house. And the odds are then the buyers will make an offer, a strong offer, in a very timely manner. As a seller, you're going to want to keep in mind that your home's going to be viewed through eyes of different entities. The first one, of course, is through the eyes of the buyers. That's why it's critical that all photography of the house, etc., be professionally done, because the first thing buyers tend to do is go to the internet to start their searches. Of course, we do have the real estate agents who are representing the buyers, and they have, of course, their own, opinions and whatnot. So you try to keep in mind what the brokerage community, how they react to houses. You're also going to have, in most cases, a home inspection done. Once you enter into a contract, or even beforehand, number of buyers will have the home inspected to make, at their expense, to make sure that it's something they want to move forward with. And lastly, if they're getting a mortgage, you're going to have a bank appraiser come out and look at the home. And the bank appraiser's out there to pretty much just look at the bare bones condition and is the house worth the money that has been offered to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the consultation, showcase consultation, is what I call it, how it works. We arrange to have a meeting at the house or your condominium, walk around the outside to kind of get a look at how does the landscape look. Again, if you are in a house and the camellia bush, when you first moved there 30 years ago, is completely covering the front bay window. If it's all out of weeds, etc. Again, we look at how does that street appeal look, because it's very important. We also, again, look at the siding, the roof, various items like that to make sure that there aren't any glaring issues. Because again, it doesn't bode well if you've got a blue tarp on the back of the roof to prevent the water from coming in. Those type of things. So it's kind of aesthetic and mechanical. Same thing occurs on the inside of the house. When you walk in, does the room feel comfortable and inviting? If you're going to live in your property while you're on the market, we need to look at, well, the furniture that's in the room. Does it take up all of the room? Do you happen to maybe have inherited or have a hutch in the dining room that covers up a view window? We look at various items of that nature to make sure that it looks inviting and can let the buyer mentally know where they're going to put their things. So that's the very important aspect, is selecting what to keep, what to pack, and what to move. It's a very important part of the beginning of the selling process. I'm often asked, well, do I need to finish the hardwood floors, re-carpet, repaint? Do I need to remodel my kitchen or baths? In the majority of cases, no. Because what can happen is most buyers are willing to come in and put their own touches on it. If any of you have watched HGTV or some of those real estate shows, they would have you believe that every house puts in a brand new stainless steel kitchen, baths, open up walls, etc. Well, I'm here to share with you that number one is they get this done in 3 weeks or a month. And in reality, those type of improvements can't get done in that short a time frame. It just doesn't happen. And cost-wise, again, the goal is anything that we decide we want to do would be nice not only to enhance the look, but also enhance the return on the investment that you're putting out there. And so the cost that they put on these television shows is in no way relevant here in our Seattle market. It's usually twice as expensive here and twice as long to get a good contractor. Plus, the bottom line is, if you're going to live in your home, do you really want to live through a remodel just to find out that your buyer came in and decided to rip down all their hard work? So let's talk a little bit more about the downsizing, which again is a pretty daunting task. When you're thinking about downsizing, the number one thing that comes up is it's psychological. In the majority of cases, we have real problems letting go of things. And it's understandable. But what can happen is I've met with people, they've started to downsize. They don't really have a place yet to go, but they want to start, or they have a place to go and they're starting because there's a timeline involved. So what can happen is they start going through items, and as they get put into boxes, our minds start to go down memory lane. And which is a lot of fun and whatnot. But what happens is that those boxes where the things were put in, it can be 2 months later, and I've paid a home visit, and the only thing that's changed is that some of the stuff's been taken out of the boxes, and the boxes have been moved to a different bedroom. So again, it's a project that takes some discipline and some motivation, or else it doesn't tend to get done in a timely manner. The other side is the physical side of it. Again, lifting things, going up into the attic on a ladder, trying to clean the gutters. There comes a time when those items can prove to be a little bit dangerous, and there's, from my perspective, and this, what tends to be the final move, it's not worth hurting yourself just to save a few dollars. I know it's hard. We're used to doing many things ourselves, but at this stage, there's a better way to approach it. So again, to prevent us from procrastinating on the downsizing, the real question comes up is, who's going to help in this process? Well, if you have family members that happen to be somewhat local, that tends to be where most of our minds go to. Or sometimes it can be a friend or two. So what can happen is that people still have busy lives if they have children, etc. They have great intentions, but what can happen is you set up a time to have them over to the house to begin the process. And which means you start going through items room by room, determine again what you're going to take with you, what you're going to give to family members, and what you're going to donate. And then whatever is left at the end of the day, if it has nowhere to go, it then gets disposed of. So you've been there 30, 40 years and you're starting to go through things. Well, what can happen is that the day starts out pretty calm, steady pace. But as it goes forward, everybody wants to get the job done in a day. And while they're packing boxes and taking things away, you can be left sitting there going, well, whoa, wait a minute. Can I look at that? I might want to keep it. And that's where the stress level can start rising pretty quickly. So again, my goal here today is to kind of help you with what can happen based on real life in the real estate trenches, if you will. There are in today's market called move management companies. And what they do is they will come to the house and they do charge. Again, you're going to have there's $65, $70 an hour, but they'll go through with you and sort it all. They will pack what you're going to take with you, which can be very important, because if you pack yourself, the moving company will not insure your items if you've done it yourself. So these packing and sorting companies are kind of like going down the middle of the highway. They're trying to keep you going straight ahead. They go at your pace. If you have timelines that you have to adhere to, they're well aware of that. And they will actually not only take care of on the home front, but they'll also go to wherever you're going to move and set the house up. They'll meet the movers there, show them where things are going to go, that type of thing. So again, it's well worth it to interview with them and enlist their services if you can. And when it comes to the packing and whatnot, they are less expensive than you using the moving company. They're more expensive to pack. They go much more quickly. And I found this to be a great way for people I've worked with to go. We also have the estate sale companies. And the estate sale companies, they take anywhere from 50 to 55% of what the items sell for. With the COVID environment, a lot of them, of course, aren't able to host giant sales, but they do have their client lists, and they're still out in operation. The thing to try to remember, though, is that people buying estate goods and whatnot, you have your very high-end antiques, art, etc. And there's other avenues that can go to on consignment and whatnot. Doesn't have to even be local here. But things like your china, mint and china, sterling silver, a lot of those items. Interesting enough, the younger estate going people, even your children, if you were to offer them this stuff, they don't want it anymore. A lot of these things that you and I placed a value on in maturing, the younger group, they just don't like it. They're more inclined to like comic books. If you remember the little candies called Pez, they have the little dispensers that you press on the top and the little candies pop out. Those collections are selling for thousands of dollars, and they're taking the sterling silver and melting it down just for the metal value. So don't be surprised, don't take it personally. It just is the way it is. We mentioned charities. The goal is to try to donate as much as possible, but they're becoming much more picky in what they'll take. And if it's not going to sell or nobody wants it, lastly, at the very end, we have called clean out companies come out. They work by the truckload, and they will take all of the rest of the items in the house and make it go away. Most of the time, they're not going to landfill. They have their own networks that they might be able to to donate to. But at the end of the day, if it has to go to the dump, then it goes to the dump. Any questions on this? All right. As I mentioned, again, we looked at the outside and the inside of the home. And I mentioned that during the process, the buyer, in most cases, will do a home inspection. A home inspection is meant to evaluate the structural and mechanical condition of the home. It does not address the market value or the aesthetic value of the home. And in today's market, there's two types of inspections that are done. I mentioned the home inspection. If you're in a condominium, you have what's called a resale certificate that your association provides, discussing not only the condition of the building, but all the financials, etc. The home inspection includes, they'll check out the furnace, the electrical, the roof, plumbing, all of those various factors. And then they come up with what may be a list, or large or small, it's really hard to tell. This allows the buyer to do two things: either move ahead perhaps with an offer, or if you're under contract with the buyer, they have the option to try to negotiate with you on various items. You as a seller are not obligated to perform any of the items, but we do have to keep a bit of an open mind, because again, if you need a new roof, if the bank calls out for a new roof, some of those items you can decide not to sell, but when you go to selling again sometime, the same things are going to come up. So it's just something we need to see what presents itself. The second one is in today's market in the single family homes, the people are getting sewer line inspections. What they do is they come out with a little camera, kind of like a Roto-Rooter type of thing, and they go right down into your sewer line and go out to the street where it connects to the public right away. The goal being that there aren't any major breaks, major cracks, something which, again, may be a real problem. In Seattle, because of the topography, a lot of us live uphill from places. So if that's the case, you may not have had any sewer backup, but things could be going on in the ground that are happening. Again, that's something that then we communicate, decide what it is, what it costs, and that enables you to make a good decision for yourself. I'm often asked, well, should we do our own home inspection and sewer inspection? There's pros and cons to each way. A lot of people like to do the inspections so that it's there to provide to the buyer, so the buyer doesn't have to go through this process. It allows you to know ahead of time what might need to be fixed and whatnot. But you also, in knowing the results of these inspections, you'll also need to disclose on our disclosure forms that the state requires. You'll need to disclose these items to the buyer. So the question is, if you can't sleep at night because you need to know about all the condition of your home, you have the option to do these ahead of time. If you were to ask me which one should let's say I pick one, I would probably recommend the sewer line inspection. The costs are about $225, $250. And then you'll know the results, because it is what it is. And in a lot of cases, there's no way of guesstimating, if there's any issues at all. Home inspections, they run anywhere from $475 to $700. It's based on square footage of the house. As far as condominiums go, well, they don't do sewer line inspections. The home inspections are pretty quick because it is dealing with what you own, which is from the sheetrock in. So it's, even though the buyer may do them, it's not as critical unless there's some problems going on. But again, those problems, if they're plumbing or others, could be something that the association has to get involved in. Questions? So at the end of getting to the point where we know the condition of the home, we've kind of been figuring out all the other things that need to be done before going on the market. Do we do any fix up, or do we sell the house as is? Most people choose to sell the house as is. Now, again, the word as is does not mean, again, if you have a blue tarp, your roof's leaking, you have some real problems. Again, if there's a bank, they might not lend money on the property. But again, most people don't go in and totally redo their whole home just to turn around and sell it. If there's major structural issues, they will come up. You have the option to address them, look at them, see what they are, and determine what the best way and the best route is for you to go. As far as the asking price goes, again, if you have two homes side by side, one needs a bunch of items, one doesn't. Well, your asking prices will need to reflect some of the work needed, which may be fine because we won't know until we're right there. Is the asking price being affected by tens of thousands of dollars or just, 4,000 or 5,000? But again, these are all things we need to be prepared for before putting the sign up and going to the market. All right, pricing one's home. Most of the activity occurs within the first couple weeks, actually, that your property goes on the market. In this particular marketplace we're in, again, the time frame it's happening more quickly. In a slower market as of a number of years ago, anywhere from 30 to 60 days is when you'll get the most number of buyers through. If we get an offer at that time, it's great. You can be pretty much guaranteed, if not asking price, very close to it. It used to be you may add on 10% for negotiating and whatnot, but in today's world, if you're missing the market by 4 or 5%, the buyers will just look at your property and then move on to something else. And eventually, if you're on the market for a number of weeks or months, homes aren't like a nice bottle of wine that ages well on the shelf. When that sign's up, eventually buyers will say, well, what's going on with that house? There's got to be something wrong. So it's important to set an asking price that is competitive and that works for you, because in the end, it's your home and it's your decision to make. So how do we determine price? Well, we look into the market. We see what's homes are for sale now. We look at what homes are under contract. They're called pending sales. That shows what they were listed for and how many days they are on the market before they got an offer. And then, of course, there's the final sales price and what is the ratio that the seller received based on the asking price. Generally, 2 or 3% is about the maximum if your home sells right up front or in a very timely manner, if not over asking, depending on what neighborhood you live in and how many buyers come out to your home. Now, our homes, of course, we all have individual situations. And again, what I'm happy to do, if you want to provide DeWitt with your email address and where you live, I'm happy to email you a look at what the sales, what's going on in your particular neighborhood. I usually go out about 10 to 12 blocks in a circumference to grab properties. That way, when you receive the email, you open it up and you're able to see the houses. You're able to see what the interiors of the homes look like. Again, it's a great way to really kind of tune in with what's happening, because every house has its own nuance. And with your address, I'm able to look up the particulars of your home and then kind of send you again a look at your neighborhood. So lastly, I've often asked, well, what does it cost to sell my home? The closing costs are all based on either schedules or percentages, and it all stems back to the price that your home sells for. This includes the real estate commission, the state excise tax, escrow fees. We provide as sellers title insurance to your buyer, and then there are some recording fees and whatnot. So if you are just kind of starting to crunch numbers, if you use 8.4% of a sales price, that should cover all of your closing costs. That's including the brokerage fee. Brokerage fees average 6%, with 3% of the brokerage fee going to the buyer's company and agent, and 3% going to your seller's, to your selling agent and their company. And then the agents get paid by their companies based on whatever arrangements they have. The other one I mentioned, state excise tax, it's in a graduated method today, where there's certain percentages on the first $500,000 and on up. So if you use that percentage I gave you, that'll help you kind of get a sense. A lot of people say, well, let's just add on 10%, but again, when you're talking the values that we're talking about, 8.4 is a little bit closer. All right, well, that's pretty much what I had to share with you today. And if you have any questions, throw them out there. I'm happy to answer them for you.
So everyone, you can unmute yourself or write in the chat box for any questions. Any questions for Dick at this moment?
Nope. Okay. Well, folks, I appreciate you attending. If you have any questions, you can email me at dickc, D-I-C-K-C, @windermere.com.
Oh, we have one question, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Dick. So how does Tacoma market compare to Seattle?
The Tacoma market, the prices of homes are less than in Seattle. Now, again, Tacoma is broken up into some various locations. You've got your stadium area, old Tacoma, beautiful homes. The same homes up here on our Queen Anne or Capitol Hill, the values are higher here. But the values have risen in Tacoma as well. Again, Tacoma, you've got kind of like Seattle. There's some various locations that don't perform real well. Well, because there aren't as many homes. There's more rentals and apartment houses and whatnot. I don't have the Tacoma statistics in front of me to give you an idea.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess that's it.
All right.
All right. Thank you again, Dick, for a very incredible, informative presentation. I think we all learned something new. We will be emailing everyone evaluation forms and would love to hear your feedback on this presentation as well as suggestions for future Zoom presentations. If you have any questions about Joya Thornton Place or would like a tour, please call us at 206-306-7920. Again, I'm DeWitt Wesson, the Community Relations Associate at Joya Thornton Place, and this concludes today's presentation. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again in future Zoom events and until we meet again in person. Oh, actually, Dick, they're asking if you will send your questionnaire, and I guess you can send it through me if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, what I could do is either way, I can scan it, send it in a PDF directly to you. It's about, oh gosh, there's front and back to it, so there's probably 4 pages. Either way, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, thank you all for coming today, and this concludes today's presentation. All right, have a great rest of your day.
Enjoy your day, folks. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, DeWitt.